I think that when you learn about other groups, you gain a wealth of information about the people around you.
In the spring of 1969, students at UC Berkeley staged a campus-wide strike, demanding the formation of a College of Ethnic Studies. The conflict between students and administrators generated a conversation around curriculum inclusivity that captivated the university for several months. After much negotiation, the two sides compromised to form a Department of Ethnic Studies under administrative control. Since 1969, the Ethnic Studies Department at Berkeley has grown into the largest degree-granting program in the country. Beyond Berkeley, the modern spread of ethnic studies into high school curricula serves as a testament to the power of conflict and compromise to drive positive change, revolutionizing how we study the past.
Sitting in the morning sun, I'll be sitting when the evening comes.
The 1960s were a time of dramatic change. Across the nation, marches and protests disrupted daily life with radical demands for institutional reform. From free speech to the Vietnam War to the Civil Rights Movement, a cult of student activism rose out of youth angst and flower power. And as minority leaders like Martin Luther King Jr., Cesar Chavez, and Dolores Huerta championed empowerment for oppressed peoples, a diversifying student body carried these ideas of equality to higher education. A series of laws made college education significantly more accessible to ethnic minorities, including the GI Bill of Rights, the Civil Rights Act, and the Higher Education Act. As more minorities enrolled in universities, however, many found that their perspectives were missing from the curriculum.
The argument for tradition didn't get much traction with young people at the time. Tradition was clearly flawed in some meaningful ways. So young people were looking for a change.
Students at University of California, Berkeley decided to take action. 4 student groups on campus, African American, Asian American, Mexican American, and Native American students united as the Third World Liberation Front. Their goal? To create a third world college devoted to independent ethnic studies. On January 22, 1969, the conflict began. Student leaders Manuel Delgado, Lenata Warjack, Richard Aoki, and Charles Brown publicly submitted 3 main demands to the Chancellor: funding for the implementation of a third world college, third world control of this college, and more third world people in positions of power. They began striking with picket lines at all the major entrances to the campus. On the opposing side of the conflict was the Berkeley administration, Chancellor Haynes, and California Governor Ronald Reagan. Concerned about budgetary restrictions and hiring control, Haynes was hesitant to fund a college that he believed would only benefit a minority population at Berkeley. A hardline conservative, Reagan had a clear stance on student protest.
All of it began the first time some of you who know better let young people think that they had the right to choose the laws they would obey as long as they were doing it in the name of social protest.
This partisan divide fueled violence that occasionally eclipsed the strike's intention.
And it was a tumultuous time, Going to the library was literally taking your life in your hands because there was warfare on campus between the students and the police.
During one tense demonstration on February 20th, a loose tear gas canister exploded and violence broke out down Bancroft and Telegraph Street. Police officers bombarded students with tear gas. The students threw canisters back at the police, along with rocks, bricks, and cherry bombs. 25 policemen and students were injured, 2 cars were flipped, and 15 students were arrested. Governor Reagan put the National Guard on alert and called the troops in the next day. Despite the violence, the conflict between the students and the administrators generated an important conversation on campus. The strike became a visible part of daily life at Berkeley, and ethnic studies was catapulted to the forefront of the campus consciousness.
At the beginning of the strike, many of the students may not have understood or even agreed with the issues. But the process of the strike was actually educational, and eventually the message did resound pretty deeply with the rest of the student body.
By attacking the administration, the students opened a campus-wide dialogue about curriculum inclusivity. This open dialogue led to negotiations, and the two sides eventually agreed to a compromise.
But with respect to some of the issues with which this began, the proper response to minorities, we are working at that. We've already reported a great deal of progress.
In early March, student leader Manuel Delgado announced a moratorium on the strike in exchange for a new Department of Ethnic Studies that would report directly to Chancellor Haynes. It was a qualified success, as both sides made concessions. The administration gave up funding for the new academic unit, and the students sacrificed the ideal of minority control over the department. Although the Third World College still hasn't materialized, this compromise was an important foundation for building a more inclusive curriculum at Berkeley. In 1984, Berkeley established the first Ethnic Studies doctoral program, which funded intense academic research on minority histories. In 1991, the Berkeley faculty voted to make a semester-long Ethnic Studies course mandatory for all undergraduates. By expanding the study of these silenced histories to the broader student population, UC Berkeley recognized ethnic studies as a relevant field to all students, regardless of ethnicity. The positive impact of ethnic studies has reached beyond Berkeley. By 1993, there were programs in over 700 American universities. Over the past decades, high schools across the nation have begun offering ethnic studies classes, with some individual districts in Pennsylvania, Connecticut, and California even making ethnic studies a high school graduation requirement. Recent research shows that enrollment in these courses corresponds to positive academic performance. A 2016 study from Stanford found that ethnic studies participation increased GPA by 1.4 grade points for at-risk students. A research review from the National Education Association recorded that ethnic studies for white students have a positive impact on students' development of democracy outcomes like racial understanding and involvement in political affairs. Conflict around ethnic studies persists today. In Tucson, Arizona, the state legislature banned Mexican American studies on the grounds that they were stoking racial tensions and radicalizing students. But in the model of the 1969 strike, the conflict in Tucson is not hopeless. Rather, it is a step towards achieving progress. The government ban has shined a spotlight on ethnic studies and reignited the dialogue about the real implications of these programs. Following in the footsteps of the Third World Liberation Front, students in Tucson organized walkouts to disrupt the school day and create more visibility for the cause. If history is any indication, compromise is on the horizon. The Third World Liberation Front strike had a lasting impact on Berkeley and the rest of the nation. The conflict between liberal students and traditionalist administrators created a conversation about minority perspectives in education. When the issue of inclusivity embroiled the campus, both sides embraced mutual sacrifice and agreed to compromise on an ethnic studies department. Since then, ethnic studies has grown into an esteemed field of research only through incremental advances, through diplomacy and compromise. And the conflicts today are not tragedies. They are ways to further discussion on the continued importance of studying minority histories. The model of the Berkeley strike is especially relevant for the world today, as partisanship threatens to consume our democracy. We must not shy away from engaging each other in discourse, because both conflict and compromise are equally important parts of progress.